So one thing about having been a liberal like 5 years ago and then deciding actually liberalism is entirely wrong, the entire worldview is just incorrect, and knowing exactly why it's incorrect means that you have to look around for some other way of explaining the world. And I have to say, I guess traditionalism, I think is the best way to put it, is what I've decided is actually broadly correct. Looking at things in a more human way and understanding that the relations between people are actually way more important than we give them credit for. And when you realize that actually, and in fact, Marx had a great line on this. Marx actually said, the individual is an ensemble of relationships or relations. And that's a really fascinating thing for a communist to say, because one might think then that protecting and bolstering the relations is more important than destroying them. But the point I'm making is that I therefore missed out on reading and listening to lectures by important and influential right-wing thinkers. I was at a conference recently, and I was on a panel, and I was asked, what's my favourite Jonathan Bowden speech? I've never watched a single Jonathan Bowden speech. I have no idea, because I wasn't historically a right-winger. And it's the same for Pat Buchanan. And the more I see from people talking about Pat Buchanan, the more interested I become in him. Now, I haven't read any of his books, but I've seen a few of his interviews, and he does seem to have really predicted correctly a lot of what's happening and been rather prescient, to the point of being something of a Cassandra in American conservative spheres, which I can imagine is insanely frustrating. I actually thought Pat Buchanan had passed on, but it turns out he is actually still with us. He's just very, very old at this point. But you get lots of people like Chad Crowley here online who point out that Pat Buchanan has been well ahead of the curve on all of this. He has been warning of hard truths since the late 1980s and remained consistent throughout his entire career, a rarity in an age defined by cowardice and convenience. Long before it was fashionable to critique multiculturalism or demographic transformation, he was warning that a nation without shared culture, faith, or ancestry cannot endure the test of time. Well, he is obviously correct about this. But also, I want to stress just how unpopular critiquing multiculturalism, demographic transformation, or political correctness itself was back in the 1980s, 1990s, and early 2000s. Like, when I started my YouTube channel in 2013, it was basically not really permitted to criticize feminism in the public square. And it is us together, being a big media endeavor together, that has broken through. And it's not just me, I say us, like me and other content creators who got large channels and were influential, opening up a space in the public dialogue to be able to critique these things, and the left more generally, in ways that the left had trouble dealing with because we came from the left, that allowed this kind of thing to really become normalized. And so, again, just to be clear, it's absolutely right before it was fashionable. It wasn't just unfashionable. It was really, really dangerous to do so in some cases. And he points out that, look, Pat Buchanan was sounding the alarm long before this clip that we're about to go through in 2011. But this particular clip is just very, very interesting. Like I said, I've not read any of his books, but in The Death of the West, Chad points out that Buchanan predicted the demographic collapse of Western nations, the rise of militant multiculturalism, the weaponization of guilt against the historic majority, and in Suicide of a Superpower, he made the case plain. America was breaking apart, not from foreign invasion, but from ideological rot from within. And that is so true. That is precisely what has happened. Great powers are rarely conquered from without. Usually they collapse under the weight of their own issues from within. So anyway, I thought we'd look at this clip and just enjoy it, because there are some fascinating things. Because remember, this is back in 2011 that this clip was recorded. And it feels like a product of its time, but Pat feels like a man of now. I think that's the most interesting part about it.
I do believe this. We're going to have the American unipolar world where we're the single last superpower. That is definitely over. I think China is an emerging superpower by 2020. Economically and militarily, it'll be the dominant power in Asia. And I think an emerging superpower. Look, if they just...
But we're not dead by 2025,
well, the United States
I was worried.
2025, what concerns me is what's happening here at home. That we.
So Pat's correct on this, because it was the West that made China what it was. We decided that it was acceptable to allow our manufacturing base to move to China to take advantage of their cheap labor, depriving our working class of the traditional means that they had to secure their own economic futures, and to enrich a foreign and, frankly, hostile power. Like the Chinese aren't doing our manufacturing because they're doing us a favor. For them, they're doing it to raise their own level of civilization. They know they're taking something from us. And it's important to remember that the Chinese Communist Party is a highly ideological party. They have an agenda. They have a plan. They know that they want to get out of the century of humiliation. They know that the way to do this is just by the slow grind upwards, by improving themselves and creating a vast economy for China out of things they otherwise wouldn't have been able to do because the markets simply wouldn't have been available. And so allowing them to just manufacture everything and then sell it back to us rather than manufacturing it ourselves just to get cheaper goods and turn ourselves into a service economy has, I think, really been I think historically this will just be considered to be a massive mistake. I think now it is already seeming like a very bizarre thing to do. Why have we empowered a rival who really is not going to show us any mercy when the shoe's on the other foot? And why have we deprived our own of their own ability to get ahead in life? It just doesn't really seem to make sense, other than from an extreme hyper-capitalist exploitative position in which big business gets to use civilizations to enrich its CEOs and its shareholders. But okay, but I don't think that they should be the ones who command that, actually. I don't think they should just be able to use us up, drain us out, and then flit away to some other nation that's hostile to us. We should have had guardrails in place. But anyway, he wants to mainly talk about what's actually happening in the United States.
Seem to be disintegrating as one nation, under God, indivisible. All those things we had, it seems to me we're losing. We are very much at war with each other. Mm-hmm. And it's over ideology, politics, religion, philosophy, everything. And the terms we're using on each other, I'm on cable as you are. Mm-hmm. I mean, every day somebody's calling somebody else a racist. We didn't use those kinds of terms on each other's, even during the civil rights era.
Mm-hmm.
Now that's interesting, isn't it? He's talking about the coarsening of the discourse, the fraying of the relationships that Americans have with one another. And the thing is, I really do think that Aristotle's right, that a state is founded on friendship. It's founded on goodwill. And what the term racist does is declares to the person you're dealing with, we are not friends. We are not dealing with each other in a spirit of goodwill. I am trying to destroy your reputation by calling you a racist. I am trying to ruin you in the eyes of others, especially when I do it on television. I want millions of people to sit there and think, yeah, that guy's a bad person, because racist doesn't really have any kind of intellectual content at this point, especially given the remarkable double standards and the inconsistency with which it's used. It's used as a pejorative. It is used as a moral statement, not an intellectual one. And so what this is about is just declaring this person's off limits. You're not allowed to speak to this person. You're not allowed to listen to this person. This is a bad person, and you're a bad person if you think they're right about anything. And that was happening, as you can see, way back as far as like 2010, 2011. The damage we do to our social relations is something that is difficult to repair. It's difficult to explain because in the moment it doesn't seem like you're doing anything particularly bad, but what you're doing is setting a precedent that actually, yes, I can win arguments purely through character assassination. So the issue is never addressed. So the other person I'm dealing with feels resentful and angry at me. And it means that other people who would, other bad actors, can use the same strategy to get ahead in their time. And this ends up creating an area of political conversation that is necessary to address, but goes unaddressed because of the danger that comes with actually dealing with it.
No, it's true, but your book has a chapter called The End of White America.
Right.
Which, it's a startling term, and I'm curious what you mean, because isn't the end of white America, as we see the rise of Hispanics, a good thing? Proof that America is a melting pot, that anybody can...
Look at the smug look on her face. I mean, she is a white woman, so what this is a giant shit test. Isn't actually the demographic power of the white Americans ending in America a good thing? Because being a white Anglo-Saxon Protestant nation as the core of it, and still the majority, isn't that a good thing, actually? It's like, well, why would it be? Because people reproduce their own culture. And so if you think America is a good place because it's got low corruption, high technology, high productivity, good manners, politeness, the way that people deal with one another are particular to those people. And if those people are what made the country good, and you're like, yeah, we'd like to share this with everyone else. Okay, that's fine. But if you bring in lots of people from, say, South America, you'll get the South Americanization of the United States. And really, I think on a subconscious level, she kind of knows this. Because what the point of the shit test is to say, look, you need to stand up for yourselves. You need to say, no, it's ours. We don't have to give it away. And if we give it away, it will be way worse than it was. And this will be a deeply irresponsible thing for us to inflict on our children and grandchildren and great-grandchildren. We are creating problems for them because we are afraid of being called racist. That's hardly a responsible thing to do. And she is smug about it. Obviously, the CNN interviewer back in 2011 knows that she's arguing from a position of extreme security because if Buchanan says, well, actually, I think there might be problems that come with that, and I think it's actually irresponsible to give away our own civilization, but she's got a word for him, right? She knows what she's going to call him. She knows how she's going to smack him. She knows how she's going to humiliate him in public on TV, and that's a really disgusting thing to have the power to do, right? Like, this is something that, as a society, we should never have countenanced. This should never have been acceptable.
Succeed here, no matter the color of your skin or your religion or whatever.
Well, I'm a little concerned when people say, Pat, the majority of people looking like you, that's coming to an end, Pat. So let me say this. What's wrong with this is the idea that when whites are a minority in this country in 2041 and Hispanics are 150 million, what is going to hold us together when we don't have a common religion, we don't have common beliefs about right and wrong and morality as we used to? We are at war over whether or not equality means equality of rights or equality of rewards.
The American dream, the freedom, the belief, what caused the Arab Spring, that's what holds us together.
Do people
look at that smug look? Just look at it. The idea that the American dream belongs to Mexicans or something like that is crazy. Like, if it was, why wouldn't Mexico be a representative of the American dream? If it was, why wouldn't every other foreign country on earth be a representative of the American dream? Why is it the Americans who uphold this? And the answer is, it comes from the culture and people themselves. They're the ones who believe these things and have for generations historically believed these things. Other countries believe other things because other peoples are different. And yet she's just there smugly looking for it. It's like, right, come on, let me call you a racist. I'm going to feel so good about doing this. And you're not going to have any good response to it. And everyone's going to congratulate me. Bravo, you called him a racist. You got him, girl. Well done. Aren't you clever? Aren't you so smart? Aren't you just ahead of on the cutting edge? I mean, what are there any problems in Mexico? No, don't be ridiculous. Everything's great in Mexico. You're a racist. You're not allowed to think racist things like that. It's like, no, this is ridiculous. And moreover, it's a kind of like incredible betrayal where it's like, yeah, no, I'm just completely happy for us to give away our patrimony to just a bunch of strangers. Why is that an acceptable thing for them to think at this point? Like, let alone be totally smug about it and be like, yeah, this is how winning is. This is what being right is. This is what being moral is. Like, we don't hate people because of their skin. Nobody hates someone because of their skin, man. Like, the question is about, what do our children deserve to inherit? And the answer is the country that she inherited. That's the answer. And she's like, no, actually, I want some foreign people to inherit the country instead of our children, so they can become a dispossessed minority in their own homeland and wonder why this has happened to them and why their ancestors thought it was a good idea to give the country to foreigners. It is kind of crazy when you think about it, because the thing is, all of these people have their own countries. They have their own countries, and they have made of them often a total hash, a total mess. And why? Because they have different values. They are not... You sit there and go, well, they want the American dream. Yeah, maybe. I'm sure some of them do. But a lot of them are also like, I just want some money, right? I just want to make sure that I have something else than the shithole I came from. And it's like, okay, but you could fix that. It's like, yeah, maybe. I don't know, man. Like, it seems to be the way that we just do things over there. But you guys do things differently, and I want to join that. So that's great. But what that is completely contingent on is the people in this new place being in control of this new place and making sure the rules are set as the rules ought to be, that is attracting foreign people. And if that's not the case, if this is given away, if they're just united by a set of values, then you don't know that that's going to persist. And it can be that values change. What happens when they decide, you know what, we don't support American values? What do you do then?
Freedom and the idea of socialist equality and freedom are in mortal conflict. I was in China before you were born with Richard Nixon in 1972. The most equal society you've ever seen.
God, look at her, predatory, leaning forward. I've got you. Racist Pat Buchanan. I hate it. Smug women. Honestly, look at her.
Everybody had a blue Mao jacket on, and they were the poorest people you've ever seen. Now, tyranny, much of the tyranny has been lifted of Maoism, and it's an unequal society in China. So. Millionaires and billionaires, as Barack Obama would say.
So this is the end of the clip, but you can see exactly the issue, right? And you can see exactly that Pat Buchanan was absolutely right about the points that he's making here. And she is just thinking, how can I discredit him? She is just thinking, how can I make him look like a bad person in the eyes of the people watching? And she's desperate to do it. And it's, for what? So I can essentially judo flip the power of straight white men in the United States. For what? Straight Mexican men? Straight, like, Latino men? What are we doing here? Like, what's the point of this? What do you think you're going to achieve? And you can totally feel this sense of frustration on the part of Pat Buchanan, being like America's last Cassandra, saying, look, this is going to happen. This is going to be a problem. Don't we need to do something about this? And facing essentially a deeply hostile agent who is just insistent, no, I'm going to pretend that we're going to have a polite conversation, but in this conversation, I'm going to do everything I can to undermine you and make you seem just like a bad person. That is awful. That's absolutely awful.